Welcome to another episode of the Impro podcast. My guest today is Joe Earley, a sound recordist and owner of the Library of Sounds. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So can you explain a bit about what the Library of Sounds is?
The Library of Sounds is quite a new thing for me. It's a variety of different recordings from nature, ambiences, sound effects. It's one of my passions to capture all the world's sounds, as there's loads and loads of stuff on this world.
And so where can people find it?
So it's www.libraryofsounds.com.
So I'm going to play you a piece of music, and it's completely improvised. I want you to tell me what it makes you think of. So that's anything that comes to mind. Don't overanalyze it too much. All right. So what did you think of that?
I think initially I felt like a sense of waiting with those single notes that were coming in then, and a sense of longing. And then when you went into the darker tones, that's when I think more of emotion hit the lower notes. I felt a bit sad, actually. It's almost like a bereavement.
A bereavement, so you've lost something or someone.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was just sort of hanging on this G. I remember, but like quite solid, simple, but I guess there's a sadness there too.
I think maybe the slowness of it draws out more emotion. It gives you longer to think on the notes that's been played rather than a faster paced one.
With something like that, you have less time to ponder. So you sent me a recording from the library, and I'm going to ask you to tell a story based on this recording, and then I'll improvise a soundtrack to the story over the recording. So here we have the sound of King Street in Bristol. Tell us a bit about that.
Walking through the middle of King Street, specifically the bit outside the brew house, all those benches, and this was on a Friday or Saturday night when it was absolutely packed, full of people, maybe about 8-9 p.m. I had my microphone strapped to my backpack on the back of me, and I walked through it. And I didn't expect to get what I got until I put headphones back on after and had a listen to it. What's really interesting as well about hearing a recording back, you don't understand the atmosphere until you listen to it back. And the atmosphere was really chaotic, loads going on, almost like a sensory overload. But when I was walking through that, I didn't feel that. It's the way that you sort of get used to it if you're in a big crowd like that.
So if I was to go for a vibe on the piano, so say like if we're building the soundtrack here, obviously we've got the sound recording when we need some music. Like what kind of vibe should I play?
In this recording, I think it starts off quite slowly, and then as you start to hear the voices going past your left ear, your right ear, your left ear, a bit more of a chaotic play on contrasting notes as it goes by, and then you get to the drum and bass, maybe a bit more intensity there, and then we roll off out of the crowds and you can hear a car sort of swiftly go by, and then it calms down, and so I think a more calming down to the end.
Got that nighttime intermingling of people. Think about that kind of theme as well. So this is an evening in King Street. We have a build in intensity and then a drop. What did you think of that?
I've got goosebumps. I think that matched it. I really liked the build-up and then the chaotic play on the single note callbacks almost. They were like, ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom. It held my attention quite well. And I think it was also quite emotional, hence the goosebumps. And I love the ending roll-off. In the recording, you sort of get that sense of a couple seconds where it just veers off and the chaoticness sort of stops. And that piano coming down like that matches that perfectly, I feel.
Well, I was going for sort of something's happening, but you're not quite sure what.
There's an air of uncertainty in the sustain in the middle bit, definitely, which I think you get in the recording as well.
It would be interesting to take the same recording and improvise a soundtrack to it with a completely different vibe, say a more positive one. I'll give that a go. Okay, so this is taking a different perspective, having a good time with the lads whilst we're going out on the raz. And it's interesting to see just the difference the music will make in this soundscape. So what do you think of that?
I think that was like an adventure, enjoyment, memories being created. It's a very different emotion that's provoked from that. That gives me a happy reaction.
I'm trying to find that euphoric sort of dance music. Maybe it's a pop music.
The end there definitely gave me that.
So your brain is recontextualizing that bit of sound. So I'm going to play another recording now. This one's of a storm. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I was on a walk with my dad back where I live, near Glastonbury. When we set off on this walk, there's no sort of sign of a storm. It seemed like quite a clear day. We were walking back, probably about 10 minutes from home, and suddenly clouds start rolling in, and then you hear some distant thunder. It's quite rare that we get thunder in England, and I'm like, oh, I really want to get this to record. It starts tipping it down, raining, and I'm there running back home. I make it back, I get all my equipment out, get my rainproof stuff on, get all my recorder, get my dry bag and stuff, and I go out onto the roof of our house. There's like a little flat bit. I went out there with my tripod, when it was tipping it down, set up my equipment, and the thunder was just going over us. And I have an app that tracks where the thunder is and how long ago it was, and so I could just see it rolling over. By the time I set it up and then walked back to the window, because I had to climb out the window to get onto the roof, I was drenched, and I had these jogger shorts on, and they absorbed loads and loads of water. I left it outside recording while the thunder was going over, and this is what you'll hear.
So tell us a bit about this experience of the storm. Like, what was the vibe like?
I think it's a matter of perspective again. I think some people find storms really scary. Some people find them really calming. I think I'm the kind of person that finds it really calming. It gives me a sort of really intimate, cozy feeling when you're inside and there's a storm going on. Birds tweeting outside a bit. They don't really sound too alarmed, really. They're sort of just calling to each other.
But I guess when you were in the storm, it wasn't quite as calming.
No, it wasn't. No, not at all. When I was outside on that roof, the raindrops were piercing, quite heavy as well. It wasn't fine rain. I say that was quite intense, actually.
So did you feel like you were in the wild?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt exposed out there, actually. Essence of in a rush. You kind of want to get the equipment out and you want to get it set and you want to do it right. But you don't want to be out for ages because you're going to be soaked and cold and wet.
So I'm going to go for this change in experience. So when you're setting the stuff up and it's hectic, and you're in the elements, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like you're vulnerable. And what was the word you used?
Exposed.
Exposed.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, you go inside and there's a sense of calm. The storm's still going on there, but you're sheltered. So did that work for you?
Yeah, definitely. I felt a definite uneasiness at the start, exposed, very quite primal feeling. And then as I got inside, and then the music came to more like a home, warm feeling, almost like a home-cooked meal vibe, I'd say. Felt almost come to sit around a fireplace or something.
As we were talking earlier before we started recording, because the clocks just went back.
Yeah.
And I said that in places like Norway and Sweden, they have very little daylight at this time of year. And then you mentioned a word which is like a cultural thing.
I think it's Hygge. I think it's Hygge, yeah. Like a cultural thing where they get under blankets and they light candles and they socialise and they play board games or card games, or they focus on that social connection to sort of get them through maybe the sadness and the no daylight and no sort of stimulation from light.
I was going for my musical interpretation of Hygge.
Yeah, I think you nailed that. It gave me sort of a fireplace coziness, which I associate with home. You got something outside that's thrashing on your house. It's really cold and windy and rainy.
I was using these major sevenths. I find adding these extensions to chords gives a sense of classiness and comfort.
Warm. It feels like a really warm tone.
I take a chord like C and play an F in the bass. It seems to have this unresolved but calming nature to it.
You can't quite describe it. It's more of the experience, isn't it?
So the next recording is Waves at Minehead.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
I was planning to go to the beach. I didn't really have any intention to necessarily capture the waves in this way, but I was at the beach and I was like, you know what? It's quite a shallow wave, so I'm going to go in there with my tripod and I'm going to stick my tripod in the sea and have my recording equipment pointing down at the waves, because I feel that those sort of shallow waves coming in, they're rippling in. I really like the sound of that. And this is not like a large waves. We're talking almost like really small rippling waves that come over and make a really nice sound. I really wanted to capture that essence. I had two people I was with that were swimming out in the sea, and I was just really calm, standing in the sea, just feeling the water wash over me, and then hear the sounds really closely of these waves washing over as well. It's really calming.
How would I play that musically?
I think get a sense of the water rolling over and washing over you. I describe it like if you were to feel an emotion really strongly, rather than shying away from it, embracing the emotion and letting it wash over you like a wave. Sort of acceptance, just letting it be.
So acceptance and water washing over you in a calming way. Because water and breathing, there's a real connection. Yeah. So when you have something that breathes in and out, it goes...
Yeah.
And when you hear water, calm waves, they sort of simulate that.
Because it is ever breathing in and out.
Yeah. Here we go then. How was that?
That was beautiful. I think the start bit where you had the sort of rolling of the notes, I felt the emotion sort of coming towards you, and then the warmness of the middle bit emphasised the acceptance of it, and then I felt the end bit, the calmingness of it. I think that replicated it quite well.
I was just taking this C major shape on the piano and moving it up and down. So trying to get a sense of fluidity.
I think that replicates the water moving as well, but it's interesting, the further you move up, the more lighter and sort of accepting it becomes, and then the further you move down the chords, the darker and more intimidating it feels.
So more acceptance towards the top of the piano, and then
intimidation and overwhelmingness, I think, at the bottom.
The bigger the wave, the lower the tone, if I was to use this sort of technique. So like little waves, you can imagine a kind of... And then there's a big wave coming. You can introduce an element of danger by making it more dissonant. So a big bad wave could sound something like...
That seems like something is going to happen, something bad is going to happen. How does that work with just by changing those last two things? It changes it from a big wave to a big wave and something bad's going to happen. That you just add that tiny bit and it makes your brain go, I'm ready for something coming. Yeah, it's amazing.
Because you have a sense of harmony. So we're kind of built in with this sense that harmony means things are all right when you've got this kind of... But then when you start adding notes that aren't in the key and playing a more minor tonality, things don't seem okay anymore. So the James Bond chord there. It's a minor major 7.
So in your brain, would it almost go, those notes don't work, that's not correct, and then it starts to question it?
Something there not quite right.
Yeah.
And also we've been conditioned. That's the other side of it.
Yeah.
You look at the Jaws theme tune. If it was... It's a very different kind of shark. If it was a plastic shark.
Yeah. Or a rubber inflatable shark.
It's quite interesting when you have a contradiction in terms of the atmosphere of the sound, say, and the music. And you sometimes get that in films where this should be a nice environment. You're at the beach. It's calm sea. It's nice day, but it isn't. And there's something that's happened, but you're not quite sure what it is, but that it creates this sort of contrast in what should be happening and what the emotion is. So I'm going to try taking the beach recording at Minehead and playing something dissonant and sinister over it and see how that affects the atmosphere.
I felt like a body might have washed up on shore when you're playing that. It's an air of uncertainty that you've created, questioning, like a longing to find out what's happened. Maybe it feeds into the primal thing of the human brain, protect you and find out, get to the bottom of what's happened and why am I feeling like this? The anxiety, uncertainty, oh, something's up, you know.
I hope it hasn't ruined the day at the beach for you.
Sound recording, field recording to me it's a different world, the music world, but I guess it's all sound and it's all picked up through the same sense and perceived through the same sense.
Yeah, I think in a sound recording, it's more ambiguous. There's less emotional information, if you like. And it's interesting that you have these attachments to the recordings.
It is interesting because people think of photographs where they take photos and they can look at the photos and it will take them back to that snapshot in time. For me, when I play an audio recording that I've done, I close my eyes, it will take me back to that place and that memory of me recording that and the place, and I can almost connect all the other senses around, maybe the smell and what I could see and what I could feel, what the temperature was like. I remember that just by that audio, and I don't know if there's more information that I picked up from hearing that.
What did you get out of this podcast?
An emotional understanding behind music and how big a part it has to play in deciphering an emotion out of something. I think you playing those different recordings I did and changing the perspective on it, it really shows me how much it can sway things. It's everyone's perspective is different on that. And I think you can change that with just composing a piece of music.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to come on again in the future when I've got more sounds to show.
Join us again for another episode of ImproPod. Thanks for listening.